Hello, welcome back. I am Anthony Mueller, the wine advocate reviewer for Washington State and South Africa. Today, I have a icon of the wine industry. Double Master Doug Frost, Master Sommelier, Master of Wine. He'll be talking to us about his brand new project, Echolands. We can get him in here today. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. November is just around the corner. Can't believe Halloween's almost here. Hello, sir. How are you? Can you hear me? Are you? looks like you're buffering there. Are you? Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Looks like you're cutting up. Cool. Awesome. There we go. Fantastic. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know that you're an incredibly busy guy. You got a lot of things going on. And right now in Walla Walla, there is some harvest upon us and harvest everywhere. So for the people who may have been living under a rock like the last few decades who don't know who you are, can you please give us a quick background about yourself and kind of talk to us about Echolands Winery and what its inception was?
Sure, absolutely. And if for some reason the video is cutting out a little bit, I can try a different network. But is it okay for now, Anthony?
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, at first it was kind of grainy. It's still a little grainy, but I can hear you, so it's good.
Okay. Well, my name's Doug Frost. I live in Kansas City, but I'm originally from the West Coast. But we moved out to the Midwest when I was a little kid, and I come from the restaurant business. I was washing dishes when I was 14 years old, and from there figured out there was better money out front. So started going out and working the floor, and eventually ended up as a wine salesman, and found my way through the Master Sommelier and the Master of Wine programs at various points in my career. Took them both at the same time, which is a terrible idea, dreadful idea. We will never do that again.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm going through it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel your pain is all I can say. I feel your pain. And so I started this project about 2.5, 3 years ago, and it really was kind of happenstance, because I am I'm a middle-class kid, so I really don't have a whole lot of control over anything other than my family, trying to pay the bills and such. But I there's a businessman in Kansas City with whom I started working, and we were doing a lot of charity work and a lot of such that he said at some point, if you ever get the hankering. And so that's kind of the hankering. This is the hankering,
That's awesome. That's always how a lot of these things work. I know so many Somm friends who have been in the business for quite some time, and they've made those connections with, that one person that really believes in them and says, if you ever have a crazy gray hair and you want to do something wild and you want to do this, I'm your guy. So it's good to have those people.
It is.
I believe that's how Brian McClintock got his start into the retail business, and then ultimately out into wines and whatnot. Off the floor.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
Cool. Awesome. So so bring us up to speed. It's 2020. It's October. You're currently in Washington, in Eastern Washington right now. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel room, in a fancy hotel room, not in Walla Walla. I don't live here yet. I don't have a domicile here yet, so I live in the Airbnb or hotel world when I come up here, because I'm up here typically 1 week a month or so. There's a full-time winemaker who does the real work, and so I just come up here and unnerve him and make life difficult. But we're finishing up. We're done with harvest actually as of Friday.
Awesome.
We brought everything in.
Fantastic.
We do tend to bring things in earlier than other people. So and it's it's a stylistic predilection, but there are advantages in certain years. Like 19, it was nice because the freezes and the frosts were coming, and we managed to get most of our stuff in before anything really got damaged. 20, when the smoke damage, when the smoke arrived and sat here for about a week, it was we had a little bit of stuff in, but we didn't have all of our stuff in by any means. We only had maybe 20% or so.
For sure. Yeah, it's 2020 for really just for really challenging year, and I think moving forward, we absolutely must take a hard look at climate change and how to mitigate the effects of the heat spikes, i.e. going into fire season, smoke taint, smoke damage. It's going to be a serious thing. I mean, I've been in Napa since 2014, and this year was particularly challenging. It was 10 days after the onset of Verizon, and that's when the first fires happened. And it was smoke in the air for about 2 months straight. And luckily we have blue skies, but oddly enough, it is another hot day today. So it's going to be just under 100 today. So we've got this weird influx. It was beautiful the other night, but now it's going to be hot this week and then back down in the 70s. But I think climate change is going to be a real interesting thing to look at. But yeah, smoke damage. It can really, it really will ruin an entire fiscal year, and that's something that we really need to look at. And
it's a difficult problem to suss out, in so much as and it may surprise people to know that you really can't tell in the juice, in the must. You've got to take it all the way through fermentation, which in most cases means you've already negated whatever opportunity you had for insurance or for rejecting the fruit. If you take the fruit, it's yours. And so, then when you fermented it through to dryness, it's somewhere between the 5 and the 10 bricks number that you will discover, oh, this doesn't taste good. This tastes like an ashtray. Yeah. And, there's only so much bourbon barrel wine out there. Probably one is too many, but I'm not making one, so. Yeah. So we've had to reject a little bit of fruit, and we're taking a hard look at some of our Cab Franc. Cab Franc seems to be also like Pinot Noir, like Petit Verdot, one of those grapes that is pretty sensitive. So we've got some that's great, and then we've got a couple that we just have to get it all the way through to dryness, and then make that choice. Yeah, it's a crazy year, I tell you what. Yeah. I want nothing to do with 2020 if I can help it, but I can't help it. So. I mean, it's hard to think. It's hard to like conceptualize that this is still the entire same year that when it first started. It seems like it's been going on for like a decade now. It is. This is the decade of 2020. Right? Save me, Anthony. Save me. Seriously, I'm over it. I'm done. So moving to Echolands, it's your new project. You wouldn't be the first person to be persuaded by Walla Walla Valley possibly on their way to the Willamette. Tell us about the Steamboat Conference and how it had a huge influence on you, and ultimately how Echolands Winery came to be. Absolutely. The Steamboat Conference is something that probably most people outside the industry have not heard about. It's been going on for close to 40 years or so. And I first started going about 35 years ago or so. I was relatively new as a wine wholesaler and importer. And I had decided, and this was 1985, I decided that I wanted to be the Oregon wholesaler of record in Kansas City. And I was put into contact with a guy named Stephen Carey, may he rest in peace, one of my favorite people in the industry. And Stephen and I met up, courtesy of the great Mike Richmond from Acacia, and we had this great conversation and decided to bring all this wine in. And so I really loaded the wholesale company up with 1984 Oregon Pinot Noirs, one of the worst vintages of all time. But we got through that, and yada, yada, yada. Stephen started inviting me to this conference, even though no press, nobody but winemakers are supposed to be there. But he realized, I guess, that I was just so hungry for info. So I would go there, I would learn from other people, I'd listen to how Pinot Noir is made. Obviously, other grapes were discussed there as well. But I think that it fit in well with my views about wine, that I want wine to exhibit elegance, that I want it to be more about, a gentility than it is about, whom and power and all of that. And so Pinot Noir made a lot of sense. The silly part, as you say, is why the hell didn't I come to the Willamette instead of, coming to Walla Walla? And there's a couple of reasons. One is because my business partner and I, we had this long talk about it, and it Walla Walla fit our needs. It is a place where I think we can make wines of elegance, and I love Syrah. I think Syrah is amazing, and I love telling people, actually, a quick story that years ago I was quite proud of a moment when I was conducting a very old Bordeaux tasting. It was like, first grows and second grows from the 60s and such, and it was really cool. And there were about 100 people in the audience, and I said at one point, what I love about old Bordeaux is how it reminds me of Burgundy. And I was booed by half the crowd and cheered by half the crowd. And I was okay with that, But it's like, I really do think often in the New World, there's this perception that, well, our wine lasted for 25 or 30 years. I'm like, yeah, that's not the point. Just lasting isn't the point. Did you change and get better? Did you grow something new? And for me, Bordeaux is this amazing animal that can do that. Now, can we do it in Walla Walla? I feel like I've had some wines from, let's say, Woodward Canyon, where I thought, you did it. It's here. It's that, those extra layers, that velvet, the character that I'm seeking. And so I came here because, because I'm a major pussy. So, I did not go to the Willamette and make Pinot Noir and fail. Okay. I hope we'll make money here, and then I'll go buy Willamette Pinot Noir to consume. I am a coward. And right. If Stephen Carey were alive today, he would have called me a coward, and I would have had to say, you're right, I'm a coward. But also it is that I feel like the Willamette has said what it, there's many people saying with Pinot Noir what I would want to say. And I feel like you're supposed to bring to something, something new. And I felt like maybe I can make a style of Syrah or a style of a Bordeaux style blend that is a little different and therefore be of use. But if all I'm going to do is try to mimic my favorites out there, I'm not doing anything. Just buy the wines and shut up, So it is a lot of things. And I would actually, finally, I would have to say that the community in Walla Walla, I've been coming up here for over 3 decades, and the community, winemaking community up here, really, I just feel at home. I feel welcomed here, and I always have felt that way. And my mom's family is from around here. There's a building named after her aunt around the corner. It's like I felt like there was some connection here. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, so I'm like I say, come up here.
Cool, awesome. But it's refreshing to hear that you say that you don't want to emulate someone else, because that means that you're letting the terroir speak for itself. You're capturing the natural expression from the land, and you might have distinct winemaking decisions, like harvesting a touch earlier, to coax some part of the wine out to kind of steer it towards one style rather than another. But no one wants a clone of a bottle. It's like no one wants to be number 2, because there's always going to be that number 1. And that's something that I think is important to the sincerity of the wine and to the purity of the wine as well.
That purity is one of those words where that would be something to reach for, and I certainly by no means believe that we're even close to that yet. But yeah, that would be what you said. That would be the goal, that to continuously look at the fruit, and of course you make decisions in picking, and you make decisions in the amount of oak and all that stuff that is going to push the style of the wine one way or the other. But I certainly think that there's something in the grapes themselves that we're getting because of the vineyards we're choosing. We're sticking only to Walla Walla. We're not going outside the area. And because I'm tending to use higher elevation vineyards, a little bit cooler, I think it's my hope, and certainly my goal throughout, to coax out of them what I think is there that is worth saying.
Cool. So your intention when first starting the brand is that you hope to have this kind of delineated expression from the terroir.
Yeah, it's funny. The Echolands name, when I chose that name, I was sort of surprised it was available. But part of it was because I live in Kansas City. I'm thousands of miles from here. Taylor, thank God, lives here and has been making wine here for a decade. But there, there's something of an echo back and forth. There's certainly the kind of snarky note as well of echo chamber, and that's certainly what a lot of us in wine tend to do, is talk to each other and amplify what we're saying. But right. I also thought it was I thought there was some meaning in the sense that the myth of Echo from Ovid's Metamorphosis is all about the sprite being turned into a corporal form in order to express her love of this youth. And she was the rule was she could only repeat what was said to her. And so for me, winemaking is that, or at least that's a nice image for winemaking, that all we're doing is taking the fruit and we can only say what the fruit is already saying. We can try to amplify that, but we cannot add new words, new meaning. And I think when winemakers do that, that's when I, as a wine drinker for most of my life, that's when I'm kind of like, yeah, that's not really, I'm not on the same wavelength.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that completely. Like, we get a lot of that fluff. It's like, maybe the emperor isn't wearing any clothes.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah. Right. I don't wish to castigate other people's taste, because I think that's, if nothing else, my wife teaches me how we all have differing palates and we all have differing styles that we're looking for. And so I don't castigate anybody that has preference of a different style. But I also feel like I'm supposed to express what these grapes give me as I understand it. Awesome.
Speaking of letting the grapes express themselves as you understand, we have some wine to try. This is a first here. Yeah, so let's move in kind of increasing amplitude and flavor. So we're going to start with the 2019 Echolands Grenache. This, just looking at the color, you get that already that nice, beautiful, like, is this Pinot? Is this?
Yeah.
It's funny, like, I once had a discussion with some winemakers, and they were talking about like how it's really challenging to grow Pinot in Washington. There are some microclimates you can do so, but someone stopped and said, no, we can. We just call it something different. We call it Grenache.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's cool. But it's like, but they're not the same grape, and like to call one something. But I think if the general public were to try Washington Grenache of this style, for all of those people who love Pinot Noir, I think they would absolutely find pleasure in drinking Grenache from Washington. So
there's a funny funny saying in McLarenvale in Australia where they grow Grenache, and I will absolutely say that style of Grenache of people like Stephen Pennell and Drew Noonan and such inspired this. It is that they'll say that Grenache fulfills the promise Pinot Noir only makes, and it's like, whoa, a little strong.
You're gonna piss off a lot of people in Burgundy.
Yeah. But I do feel like I love Grenache in all its guises. I love big, powerful Chardonnay for pop. I love powerful Priorat. But I do feel like this was an opportunity to show this just fun. I call it silly style of Grenache, and particularly because this is the only wine right now we get from the Rocks area, and the Rocks area is much heralded, but it tends not to be my style because the pHs are high and the acids are low and the big fat wines. And so offered this Grenache, I thought, well, that's kind of perfect. We'll harvest early, we'll keep our pH in a decent state, and we'll just make this fun fruit bomb. And all we do is put it in stainless steel and put it in stainless steel drums to age for about 8 months or so, and then finish about a third of it in very old, large oak vessels, just to kind of drag the flavors out just a little bit more in the texture. And so it seems like strawberry soda. That was my bad joke about it all. I told the winemaker he failed. I distinctly asked for raspberry soda, and he handed me strawberry soda. But it has, the tiniest bit of prickle to it, and then there's a piece of, a depth at the finish that belies the whole silliness that I've described. But I like that yin and yang there.
For sure. Yeah, it's great because like you get that those high toned red fruit right up front. It's very ready and accessible. You get this kind of soft, dusty red floral expression, and then it goes on the palate, and you get that slight little prickle. I think it's possibly because it is stealth enclosure, but at the same time, I think it captures its freshness as well, and has that little kind of like nuance of spice and kind of lift. And then you have this growing like red spice, almost like potpourri that goes into almost like soft, dusty leather tones, and it's slightly funky at the end. So you have like this kind of roller coaster, like it's super high red fruit tone, and there's like this kind of whoosh of fruits and prickle, and then you're left with this kind of fun, dusty kind of funkiness, like the kind of like hot rocks, dusty hot rocks. That's great.
Yeah,
very food friendly.
The rock still speaks through. So, I hope we don't want to, in so doing, I didn't want to wipe out rock's expression, but I certainly felt like we can do something different with it that hasn't been done, at least to my knowledge, yet. So that seemed worth trying.
Yeah, awesome. And the 2019, this is the second vintage or the first?
The very first one we did. This was our first shot at it. Yeah.
Cool, awesome.
And I have to say for the record that I immediately went to the vineyard owner and said, "This was so much fun. Can we double up the fruit?" He was like, "Dude, some people out of my vineyard get like $70 a bottle. No, you can't have any more." I was like, "Really? I can't make a fun wine? That's
right.
Oh well, maybe someday we'll get more." So
cool. Awesome. So do you see this style changing, slightly evolving over time?
Well, the honest answer would be no. I don't want that to be so, but I also have to recognize that in 2020 the weather is distinctly different, and I don't know. 19 was a cool to cold vintage with freezes and such, and so far the Grenache. Taylor and I are looking at each other going, we're in pretty good shape, man. The fruit tastes good, but the fruit is relatively recent into the winery. And so we've got a long ways to go before we'll know if we hit it again. And I fully would expect we'll have to make some adjustments between what we did with 19 and what we're doing with 20. We'll see if it's going to need a bit more oxygen or maybe even less, but I suspect a bit more.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool because like it's easy drinking, but it also offers complexities if you're like paying attention. And it's one of those things where it's kind of unassuming, where like you think, oh, it's stealth enclosure wine, it's Grenache, yeah, we'll try it, and then you smell like, oh, you get a lot of those kind of heady red florals with like that high tone red fruit, but then you taste it and it continues to evolve. I mean, I've just took a sip, maybe 30 seconds ago, and it's still. I can still feel it changing retronasally. It's a really delightful wine. These kinds of wines I really enjoy.
Yeah, I thank you. I very much enjoyed that we were able to do what we thought we would do, because it was a little bit of a shot in the dark. And as I say, because I hadn't seen anything quite like it from this vineyard, or even from the larger rocks area. And I think the key was that pulling out just the right amount of wine to put in those old barrels and making sure how long that needed to be in there. The rest of the wine stayed in the kegs because I wanted that unnoticeable prickle of CO2 to be still hiding in the back. And so I think that's kind of where we're going to struggle this year, or at least be challenged this year, is getting that proportion right again.
Yeah. I suppose you could run diagnostics on recessed CO2 before you bottle, and then if you go directly into stealth enclosure as you did, I'm pretty sure it's you can make a formula. It's just capturing the right time when it goes in the
exactly.
bottle. So,
Yeah, you can know if you did it right, and you can know if you did it wrong. But you know, at that point, I'm not going to like grab carbonic gas and stick it in there, because it doesn't taste the same. So it's one of those. We'll see. We just taste it closely and keep an eye on it, and hope we're able to get close again.
Cool, awesome. I really enjoy smelling this. It's great.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'll admit, the other two wines were trying to make something more serious, trying to make something for the cellar. I 5 years from now will be less charming than it's charmed today, and I'm okay with that. There's some wines that you're like, drink it, it's good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I can think of quite a number of somms across the country in like wine bars and fun programs that would like love to pick this up and run with it. But yeah, I think that's the perfect introduction into Echolands. So people look at it and say, cool, awesome. Well, what is next? And then you gain in complexity, character, and elegance. So do you have anything else to talk about the Grenache before we move on to the Syrah?
No, I think we're good. Let's we can. I'm anxious to pour some Syrah, see how it's doing today. That's one of the things I learned so many years ago at Steamboat is there'd be 50 people, 50 winemakers in the room with 50 blind wines, and every winemaker could pick up a glass out of the 50 and go, well, this one's mine. I'm like, how do you do that? But once you've agonized over wines for a long time, it's like with this guy. Yeah. I'm like, well, how is he today? Because I know what he was like yesterday, and you worry about it.
Funny.
So.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Because you're looking at the grapes, you're looking at the must, you're looking at the fermented juice, you're looking at the rested juice, you're looking at the juice as it's going into barrel, you're looking at the juice as it's coming out of barrel, going into bottle. You've seen its élevage every step of the way. It's like knowing a child. Like you just know which one is your child because you've been with it every step of the way. It's your baby.
Yeah, I'm still amazed by it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So this is the 2018 Echolands Syrah from Colleen Vineyard. So how happy were you to work with Colleen Syrah?
Very, very happy. It to a great degree, as I said before, the people are part of the reason why I'm here. Greg Harrington of Gramercy Cellars is an old friend and without question a mentor, although I'm sure he would be like, don't hang me with that, bro. I am not responsible for your craziness. But Greg and his winemaker, Brandon Moss, have been so flippin' helpful throughout this, particularly with the Syrah. I think immediately of one of Brandon's lines early on when I was like, wow, I'm finding, there's a touch of H2S here and I'm just not really sure what's going on. Fermentation, I know we got a ways to go. And he's like, dude, it's going to smell like shit at some point. Let it go. I was just like, oh, But Greg cut me loose some of one of his blocks of Colleen Syrah when he heard that I had purchased. I told him what was going on, but I was going to purchase some land up here, and then I purchased it. And he's like, sit down. You're going to be making wine this fall. And this was in January of 18. I was like, nope, I'm not making wine this fall. I just bought land. I haven't even planted yet. He's like, you're going to be making wine this fall. I'm like, nope, not doing it. He's like, yes, you are. Yeah. Here's block 49 Syrah from Colleen. I'm like, really? You'll give me that? So yeah.
Happy holidays. It's my birthday.
yeah, very much so. It's a great vineyard, and people like Greg have proven that it's great for Syrah.
For sure. It's I always enjoy talking with Brandon and Greg, and they're so down to earth and cool, and they make some really, really fantastic wine and wild waters.
They really do. They really do.
Cool. So when you try the Syrah, immediately from smelling it and tasting it, there is a noticeable jump in quality from the Grenache. The Grenache, it's kind of fun, but it still has complexity. This, it's becoming a little bit more serious. There's layers here with complexity. You have those dark fruits that are kind of juicy, but still kind of dusty at the same time, with those soft kind of roasted lavender tones. It's beautiful kind of nuance of that. It's not full on meat, but it's like meat from a distance, like hung meat, not like roasting.
I like that.
But it's like you're walking by meat that's aging, like far away, and you're like, that smells kind of good. What is that? Like it's there, but it's not in your face, like some Syrahs can be. I think too much meat or too much black pepper can pull the expression in a way that it kind of skews what you're really looking at. And if you like pepper and meat, great. Just start taking pepper grinders and putting in your wine. That's
Steak au poivre. Dip
exactly.
steak au poivre in every one of your glasses. I do think part of it is Echolane, that I shouldn't try to make a wine like that in Echolane. That's not Echolane. There are vineyards that you can do that, make a big meaty bloody Syrah, but that's not Echolane.
It's beautiful. It has this like kind of soft leathery tone, but this high toned black raspberry essence. That it's like where some Syrahs are more in that kind of blackberry. This is like black raspberry. It's like that red fruit that's shifted further and it's darker and it's a little bit more rigid, but it's very expansive. It hits the palate and it just kind of goes wide, almost like if you were to watch in slow motion a paint can falling off a ladder, hitting the rug, it just goes. It has great depth and complexity, and it's very lively. It has good acidity, which is always something that I look for in wines, because that will ultimately help aid in its longevity. It's really, really delicious. So what?
It was,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so it was very much, at one, as I say, the choice of Echolane means to me that I don't need to make it into a big ripe wine, because that's not, Echolane is elegance to me. But I also would say, Taylor and I made the choice to harvest before most people do. I was pleased, to see that Greg and Harrington and Brandon were right next to us at the time we're out there. And so that felt like, a pat on the back that maybe we're not screwing up on this. And then certainly, there's no more than 1/4 new oak on this. It's all French oak, of course. And it's all puncheons, 500-liter barrels, because I've long been a big believer that there's not that many grapes that need barrique. I mean, there's a reason we think about barrique in Bordeaux, because Cabernet Sauvignon and many Merlot and some Cab Franc, no problem. But Syrah, put it in 500-liter, put it in 600-liter if you need to, and let it have oxygen more than oak, expansion. And so those choices were made. But then I kind of, Taylor and I had a long chat about this. For people who are trying to make an elegant style of Syrah, to use a high percentage of whole clusters and stems, more importantly, is a maybe going the other direction. And I don't agree with that viewpoint. We started with 50% stems in this, and by the second bin, because this is all hand harvested and foot stomped, and it's in 1.5 ton bins and hand punched twice daily and all that stuff. We started with just doing 50%, and by the second bin, we were like, everything tastes fine. You look at these stems, and Harrington, amongst other people, has taught me, choose seeds with Syrah, choose stems with Syrah. Make sure you know what's coming out of there if you're going to use them. And we just looked at each other and went, let's go for it. So we ended up with 75% stems on this, simply because a few bins had already gone by. And in 19, it's 100%. It's all stems. and the thing about Echolane is it just soaks it up. It doesn't.
Yes.
The point of going to 75% is that at 50% stems, we couldn't tell the difference between that and 75% stems. It was like, well, then just throw them in there, because we'll get some spice and we'll move pH a little bit maybe, and hopefully we'll get some longevity and complexity for sure.
I think looking at the wine, moving it forward in time, I think right there in the moment, I don't think it's necessarily you can see the big difference when it's between like 50 and 75 or even 100. But I think the difference comes 10 years from now. If you were to have both those now bottled side by side, the 50%, 75%, 100%, you could clearly see a definitive difference in those. And I've said it before, I think semi-carbonic with the Rhone varietals from Eastern Washington make so much sense. There's something that it lifts the wine aromatically, and you have those stems that also have that kind of complexity. Where chatting with Christophe Baron this last year, he was saying that sometimes he chooses to actually destem and then add the stems back, so he can choose how much stems he wants to put back. And it's like, that is a level of attention that that's like almost manic. It's like what are you like? Are you weighing like how many how many grams of stems you're going to put in? But that's the attention to detail, and just being curious about the wine. Like, is there a difference between between no carbonic or no stems, or some stems, or 50% stems? I think if you're not already thinking about that as a winemaker in Washington, making the Rhone varietals, I think you're slightly behind the ball, slightly behind the game. Where I think you need to just be curious, because there is this growing movement of Rhone varietals that are dialing back alcohol, harvesting touch earlier, getting that nice acidity, capturing that nice mineral tension, but also kind of dialing in semi-carbonic and stems, and all of that will dynamically shift the expression into something that's remarkably different. And I think it's the right step, personally.
Yeah, my background is such that I was importing Northern Rhone wines 35 and 40 years ago, and so my understanding of Syrah was more based upon what I had from the Northern Rhone than Australia. Yeah. I was certainly seduced, like everybody else, as Australian Syrahs came to the fore, and clearly there's many wonderful Syrahs and Shirazes in Australia. From people like Taras Sakota, may he rest in peace. That was a great loss as well. But I don't believe in a preponderance of new oak. I still remember, I'm an old fart, so I remember when Gigal starts coming out with the Lalas, and they're all this 100% new oak, and I'm horrified. I was in Gentos d'Hervieux's cellar, and at one point I saw, there was no such thing as new oak there, but I saw a really old barrel, and just in my stupidity said to Marius, I was like, how old is that barrel? And he's just like, she's in Spa. It's like, well, I don't know. Why would I know how old the barrel is? I'm not going to, the only reason the barrel's still here is it still works. When it stops working, I'll get a new one, sort of thing. When it breaks, when it leaks. And it occurred to me then that oak is not what Syrah needs per se. Oxygen is what it needs. So we sit, like I say, right at that 20% or so, 20 to 25%, depending upon things, only puncheons. And then there was one barrel, I hate to make a big deal out of a barrel, but we found one barrel being around a long time. I have a lot of friends who are barrel brokers, and one of my friends is like, I've got this puncheon, it costs too much money, there's only one of them, you want to try it, I know your taste, Dougie, you're going to like this, and I'm like, okay, Amy, cool, And I bought this barrel, and I was flustered by it because it didn't have any distinct aromas. And we went ahead and drained the wine into the barrel, and puncheon, I should say, and it didn't have any distinct aromas. And I immediately, grabbed the thief, and we pulled some out of there, and it tasted. It was like, oh, it's in here. It's all here. And I really have to say, that particular barrel, that Cooper is now about a third of the puncheons that we use on the Syrah, because it takes this elegant thing and stretches the flavors in the mouth just a little bit broader and a little bit longer. And I don't know how. I'm just incredibly grateful, because it's one of those things of, without those barrels, this wine would not be the same wine.
Awesome. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about larger format vessels or larger format barrels for certain varietals. Makes a lot of sense. And for varietals like the Bordeaux varietals that can stand up and actually take and absorb large amounts of new oak, that ultimately makes it almost astringent in its youth, but it also kind of releases that in all those complexities and elegance with age. I think for Syrah, finding the right surface area for the ratio of juice to oak, finding the right Cooper that can coax those flavors out is the right thing. And not to say that there aren't any great Syrahs that have been made using 100% French oak. I think you have to look at what Mother Nature is giving you, look at the terroir, look at the expression, and then steer just slightly, give it a little push so it goes in the right direction. It's like I had a friend who was a captain on one of those major boats that go up and down the river, like the old paddle boats in Mississippi. And they had the old school, like the wooden turn wheel. And he showed me a video. He's like, watch this. I just do like this, and then all of a sudden, within like a minute or so, everything was kind of going this way. He just made one little move, and that one thing just moves the dial just slightly, and you end up somewhere completely different. And I think looking at the way you look at wine, I think with your background, I see nothing but great things for the entire range here.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I was humbled so many times, and at places like Steamboat, and humbled by tasting with winemakers and realizing how complex this process is. For me, I do feel, while I'm getting my hat handed to me every day in terms of learning things, I just also have to admit, I'm still a little kid giggling, going, they're letting me do this.
Right.
It's fun.
Awesome. That's cool. Anything else you'd like to say about the Syrah before we move on to the Seven Hills Vineyards?
No, I think not. There is 2% Viognier in there, simply because that's what they do in Côte Rôtie, and Côte Rôtie has been, sort of like, oh my God. And this is nothing like Côte Rôtie, but I also would like to think it's a wine that's informed by Côte Rôtie's beauty and brilliance. Nothing against Hermitage. I'll drink that too. Nothing against Cornas. I loves me some Cornas. So,
for sure. Awesome. So let's move on to the last wine for today, and this is the 2018 Echolands Seven Hills Vineyard red wine. This, of all the wines submitted this year, this really stood out to me. This is something special. Talk about why specifically you wanted to work with the Seven Hills Vineyard.
Well, it's certainly one of the oldest vineyards in Washington, certainly one of the oldest vineyards around here. But when I first got into this project, it was because we bought a piece of land right next to Seven Hills, and it had never been planted before. And so it seemed very obvious to me that, one, we're going to spend, which we did, a couple of years just plowing green manure into that dusty soil, trying to build up a living biome for the vines once we plant them, and then we planted them last year. We've got a lot of learning to do in the meanwhile. So once Greg had said, look, you're making Syrah, I'm giving you some Syrah, I was like, well, I know the guys at Seven Hills Vineyard. I need to drive down there. Taylor and I drove down there and said, can we walk around? Can you show us what we can buy from here? Some blocks we can get that remind us of our block next door. Yeah. And then can we try to get as close to the same sort of grape cepage as we have planted in Taggart. So the initial concept was 1/3 Merlot, 1/3 Cab Sauv, 1/3 Cab Franc, and a little tiny bit of Petit Verdot. And we got 2 different blocks of Cab Franc, and one of them just didn't cut the mustard, so it went out. So this is 40% Cabernet Sauvignon, 40% Merlot, just 18% Cabernet Franc, and that 2% Petit Verdot. I don't care what anybody says. It was so much fun to show my business partner, Brad. We showed him the blend with 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%, all the way up to 5%. And I'm like, 2% is the magic. That's when the tuning fork just goes like that. I don't know why. It's always a mystery to me how these things go.
Yeah. Well, I think it all depends on the other fruit profile and how the Petit Verdot will harmonize with the other fruit profiles. It's funny, I actually was offered to be on the blending team my last year at Eaglenook by Philippe Pascal. So
cool.
Pascal, it was amazing. So Philippe Pascal, Stefan Derencourt, and the production team sat down. We're all tasting barrel samples, trying to figure out what the blends would be, and we're making notes. And I was like, this one, the one cab that we had, it had 2% Petit Verdot in it, and I looked at it and was like, no, I think the Petit Verdot is actually, it's out of tune, because the other varietals are so much in sync with one another. I don't think it needs it. And everyone else is like, no, I think it's good. We like it. And then Stefan Derencourt and Philippe Pascal were like, no, we agree with Anthony. I'm like, I'm just the guy, like, no one hate me, please. But like, just for fun, let's see. So then I had the production team make another blend with 1% and then 0%. And there was one person that still thought that the 2% was still the best. But I could see how just a little bit will actually put it into focus, and it's like fine tuning everything. And
Yes.
that's what Petit Verdot, I think, does well, is it helps kind of fine tune everything. And it was just that vintage that it didn't need any Petit Verdot, just because the cab was and the Merlot were so on point that it didn't need anything else. It just, I think it kind of smeared some of the expression from the Cabernet for that vintage. But I can totally see it helps kind of frame everything, and it almost like gives it a soft, like, backbone, almost like it's not truly bone, it's almost like cartilage, where like it's firm but it's still movable, and it allows the Cab and the Merlot to do the most of the talking. But it has that little just lift that helps keep everything kind of in place, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was funny. We because we hadn't gotten Petit Verdot, a contract for Petit Verdot in advance, we had to go out shopping, and we went through a couple of Petit Verdots, and even a 0.5% was just like, no, this is disgusting. This is so wrong. Then it was one of those things where, well, you know, Seven Hills does have some Petit Verdot. Couldn't you cut us loose some? And the vineyard manager, she's pretty great. She's been very, very supportive of us, and she manages our our new budding vineyard. She's like, yeah, I'll get you some Petit Verdot. It's actually right next to where you got your Cab Franc. And it was like, mwah, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. You know, don't know why. Again, who knows?
Yeah. It's funny, like I Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, those two varietals, they tend to stand out in a blend for me. And I've famously said with some winemakers, I think really anything over 5% Petit Verdot can start to really influence a blend. Until I sat down with Lewis Skinner, and he had, I think it was like 14% Petit Verdot. I was like, oh, this is like right around that, 6% is like is like, no, this is like double. It's like, what? It's like, it's just all about the vineyard site. And some of these vineyard sites for Petit Verdot are just so stunningly amazing. And you get to see the little imprint that it just lifts everything, and then it kind of fans it out and says, here's what's going on.
It's exactly as you say, and I don't know why. I have no explanation. It just, you learn to respect those things, and then try to the best you can employ them to make the blend sing the way you want the blend to sing. Absolutely.
So what is your hope for this wine moving forward?
Well, I feel like it would be very. I think it would be wrong for me to prognosticate too much about what its future life is like. But I will say, I remember talking to Mr. Parker years ago and asking when he decided on the longevity of a wine. I said, is it just what I've been doing, which is I open a bottle, I pour a glass, I stick the cork in, I wait a day, I do that for like 5 days. And if it's still in the same position, after 4 or 5 days, then that's a long-lived wine. He kind of, smiled and was like, yeah, it's pretty close. And this wine, I wasn't sure how tense and nervous we were making this wine. And I have to admit, I'm a little surprised that it's still staying firm. So I feel like it does have a good long life in front of it. I've been consuming Seven Hills wines for decades, so I probably should be better informed than that. But it still comes down to, but we're using less new oak than maybe other people have used from the same or similar vineyards. We're trying to be mindful about extraction. I never want to over extract, and that's that fine point that I cannot yet be sure that I have found, but I'm content with this wine and its ability to age in the cellar for for some time, because it's that 5-day rule. It kind of goes, what
Sure.
did you want? I'm here, know.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. I like that answer, because what it does is it tells you that the wine itself, when you're trying to look at the wine, like figure out what it will be like, every single vintage will bring its challenges to conquer, and understanding and being in tune with Mother Nature as it's happening, and then making the best educated decisions as they're happening to make the best wine. I think you ultimately have to listen to Mother Nature, listen to the vineyard, listen to the grapes. And if you listen to the grapes will tell you what the wine wants to be. You can't force something one way. I mean, you can, but you're going to end up with something that you probably won't be too proud of. So,
yeah, I've used the term, and it always seems stupid as somebody sees my notes. I'll say, this tastes very made. And it's one of those moments where I feel like somebody just put their stamp on it, and they didn't give a shit, pardon my French, they didn't give a damn about what the grapes were asking for. And it feels made. It feels like it's, been cleaned up. Yeah. And so I hope not to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, manufactured. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like I feel that I understand exactly what you're talking about, because there are wines that come across, from time to time. You try them, you say, you're like, yeah, there's nothing technically wrong with this, but to me, it doesn't have, it's not exciting, and it doesn't really have energy. It has balance, but it's not exciting, and it feels kind of soulless, and like it seems manufactured. It seems like just another product, a cog in the machine, plopping out units after units after units, which, for me, some of those, I kind of wrap that up into, this is grocery store wine. It's a grocery. It's something you go to the store and you get your bananas, your canned soup, and your bottle of wine, because those things will not really change too much. You know exactly what they're going to taste like. You can bank on how they're going to taste, but if you've ever had like the most juiciest, freshest peach ever, you bite into it, it's like juicy. It basically, it quenches thirst and hunger at the same time. It's like that one peach that you're going to judge all other peaches against. And like you say, this is amazing. And you keep a memory of it because it's so amazing. It touches your heart and your brain, and it's impacted on your memory, and you remember that moment. Those are the wines that have that, like that special something else that I search for. And yeah, you can go to the grocery store and you can get peaches, but they're not going to be that one peach from that one place a few years back when it was like everything was right. And those are the wines that leave lasting memories in our hearts. And yeah, I understand completely what you're saying. Those wines tend to be manufactured, but there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a drink,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the term you used, the word you used, energy, is one that I would, my heroes in the wine business have made wines of energy. They've made wines with soul, and it would be stupid and arrogant of me to grab that mantle until I've been doing this for 20 years. But I at least will admit to saying, yeah, that energy thing, that's something. If I could be sure that I get those in these wines, that Taylor and I get that done, man, I'd be pretty happy with that.
For sure. Yeah, that energy, that it's intangible. It's like you can't prove it. It's like, so Doug, do you love your life? Prove it. Like, happy? Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So, awesome. Beautiful wine, by the way. I can see where it's going, and I really look forward to future bottles of this, and to see where you take it, and how you listen to the vineyard, the grapes, and all of the magic and all the geekiness that will go on in your brain as you, Taylor, are creating these wines moving forward. Cool.
Thank you. It's exciting. 20's got its challenges, but I think we've got some good things in going into barrels. And 19 was as crazy and challenging as it was I'm really happy with those wines. So, but we haven't yet blended everything together yet. So we'll have to see how, how they play together.
Yeah. Greatness takes time. So that's what they say.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as a double master, with your particular studies and professional career in the adult business, adult beverage business, has there been anything that you've learned from your past that has been incredibly helpful for you for Echolands moving forward?
I think for my part, understanding that you know nothing until you've been there for 5 or 10 years. And so that I knew that I've learned over the years, all the lessons you learn in a different place, they are only partially applicable in another place. And so as much as I've tried to learn from other people, the important thing for me and what sealed the deal for me here was I knew I could come and talk to a Rick Small, or I could talk to a Chris Figgins, or Greg Harrington and Brandon, people like that who would say, that happened to me once. Here's kind of how I dealt with it, or could at least pat me on the back and say, you're all right. Don't worry about it. You're going to be okay. You're going in the right direction. Just don't lose heart. And so, yeah, it's been that you have to know all those other things too, but then you have to have the sense to shut up and listen to the other people. Stop trying to be, the loud voice in the room. Let the wine, hopefully let the wine be the voice in the room.
That's awesome. Humility and keeping faith. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Harvest.
Doug, I could literally
what
sit
was
here
I thinking?
and talk to you. Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And regret. Oh my God, what did I just do? What? Exactly. Yeah, I've made a few decisions like that, but they all turned out all right. Everything happens for a reason, I say. Yeah, Doug, I could literally talk for you for hours, and I know that you're a busy guy, and that Instagram TV only allows for an hour. So we're coming up on that. Do you have any parting words or last thoughts for us today?
Well, I think, yeah, I do. We're particularly challenged right now. And, I suppose the first thing that came to mind was vote. But
Right.
the second thing that comes to mind is take care of each other. It's we're all in this together. We really are. And
Sure.
and that's how we got to where we are, both in the good sense and the bad sense. We're an incredibly smart and industrious species, and sometimes too much so. Sometimes, we don't have good sense. And if we listen to each other and we take care of each other, actually, I think we're going to come through this just fine. I really do.
I agree. Well, wise words, well said. Together is how we get through this, and it will get better, and we just have to keep the faith and keep on trucking.
It's nice we can have some wine while we're doing it. So.
For sure, wine is definitely a great review. Doug Frost, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me today. Absolute pleasure. It's always great to talk to you. You're so refreshing with your knowledge and outlook on beverage, and just a consummate pillar of being it for the wine industry. So,
well, you're very kind, and thank you for all that you're doing for not just Washington State, but South Africa too. They need a pat on the back too. So thank you for all you do.
Sure. Awesome, man. It's been a pleasure. Until next week, keep it locked here. Next Wednesday, 1 p.m., the conversation continues. Until then, stay safe, drink well, and be kind to others. Cheers, Doug.
Cheers.